inside Yonkers. I know.
What's up, Yonkers? It's Anderson, founder of Inside Yonkers. Sorry about last week. I had a really bad cold. I'm just getting over it, feeling a lot better. But tonight we have a very special guest, and her name is Shatika Parker. Shatika, how are you?
Hi, good evening, everybody.
So, Shatika, we are here tonight because you have made the decision to run for Yonkers City Council District 1, right?
Yep,
So tell me about you. Let's tell the residents of Yonkers who Shatika Parker is. Where does Shatika Parker come from?
sure. Born and raised here in the city of Yonkers. I grew up in School Street housing projects. I've lived in many different parts of the city, mostly on the west side, and graduated from Yonkers Public Schools. I went to School 10, School 11, Emerson Middle School, and graduated
I
from
went
Emerson
to
Middle
school
School.
10.
Did you on Riverdale?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live.
Actually, I on my personal page I posted I still have my kindergarten diploma from there.
The diploma, wow, you know what's
Yeah.
funny? I was just going through pictures not that long ago, and I found like my class photo from there, which
I
is
try to avoid my class photos because the way my mom used to dress me.
oh, ditto, ditto. The hairstyle,
So
like crazy.
so I didn't mean to cut you off. So tell me a
No, you're
little
fine.
more.
Yeah, so as you can tell, went to Yonkers Public Schools, graduated from Lincoln High School, and I've just, if you know me, if you know anybody who knows me, I've always been enthusiastically involved in my community. I went away to school. I ended up, graduating from university at Albany. And my last semester there, I actually interned in Washington, D.C. So I was there for a few months with the Vera Institute of Justice. And I was this close to actually staying in DC because
It's a beautiful city. I've
it's a
been.
beautiful city. And couple that with being from a city, a community where growing up, depending on where you grow up in the environment you grow up in, um, the only thing on your mind is getting away, getting out, because you
A
don't
little
really,
change.
yeah, especially growing up the way I did and growing up in the environment that I grew up in. I love where I grew up. I love School Street. I tell people this all the time. They think I'm crazy. I would not change how and where I grew up for the world. It really shaped me into the person that I am today.
It
But I
makes you who
think
you are for anybody,
absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And I can say about that, that experience specifically is that that's what everybody in the projects is trying to do. They're trying to get up and get out, right? Because oftentimes we're getting the short end of the stick living there. We're already living in subpar conditions. And if you can graduate, get an education, move away, experience something different, oftentimes that's what you do and you don't come back. But God had different plans for me. And thankfully he did, because when I came back, I was able to work for a labor union, SEIU 32BJ in New York City, that was doing a lot of work fighting for workers, fighting for the fight for 15, if you've ever heard that saying, right? Before we had
Right.
15 minimum wage, fighting for airport workers, commercial workers. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be deployed during the 2016 elections to Florida. And I worked on Hillary's campaign against Trump. And we all know how that ended. So it was a sad ending. But it was a beautiful experience because it really gave me, it allowed my lived experience to marry with my education and career experience, right? I was able to knock on voters' doors, talk with them. I recognized all of the differences, right? We had English literature knocking on people's doors who spoke Creole, and I'm thinking this don't make no sense. Like what is happening here? But it was firsthand experience and the
Right.
pluses and the minuses of campaigning and elections and getting people energized and engaged to vote. And when I came back, I had a decision that if it was any time that I was going to leave, stop my career, and pivot and come back to my hometown, it was then. So, I left the union. I came back to Yonkers. I met legislator Christopher Johnson, who I worked for 5.5 years, and his wife. And I guess you could say like the rest is quote unquote history, right? Like it was meant
Right.
for me to do what I'm doing. And I've always had this spirit, and it's just beautiful that I was able to come back here and do it for the people that I love and the city I love, and that's why I'm running for Yonkers City Council's first district.
That's awesome, and I'm big on that. You being open minded and trying to learn from not just one tunnel. You're opening all your tunnels and learning from each and every one. That opens up a ball of more of opportunity.
Absolutely.
So gaining the experience, especially in this field, is really important.
Yeah.
So you're running for a really, really, really big seat. It's District One.
Yep.
District One covers the majority of the highest populated areas of Yonkers.
Yep.
That has a combination of low income families, homeless, a lot.
Yep.
I don't have to say it all. It's pretty obvious.
Yep.
So I'm really curious to know. These are questions I've asked a lot of people, because these are very important, especially in District One. There's a lot of homeless in District One.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know, what is your opinion on the leadership, not necessarily not the leadership, but what has happened with the homeless issue in Yonkers in the last few years, and what would you do different to help the homeless in Yonkers?
So I'm glad you asked that question, and thank you. As I previously mentioned, I've worked for legislator Christopher Johnson at the county level for 5.5 years. And I can tell you firsthand, because our office was deeply involved from the very beginning. When we first got into office, when Legislator Johnson first got into office, shortly thereafter, the sharing community closed. And that was a dagger to the entire city, right?
Oh yeah.
And that, because that wasn't just people's homes, right? That was the food pantry that was going on. That's where I've seen a lot of people, even through this process, are registered to vote at One Hudson, right? Like that was,
Yeah.
um,
It
you
was
know,
it was a really important part of Yonkers
right, a
overall,
part
and
of
even more for than just the homeless. I get it.
exactly. And so, from the time that the sharing community closed, to present day, Legislator Johnson's office, and again, I'm speaking firsthand because I'll give a little bit of insight to people that don't know. When you are a county legislator, you have a budget to hire somebody for your office, and you can choose to break that up into little itsy bitsy pieces, or you can just hire one person and have a one-man office. And that's what
Right.
our office was. It was a one-man office. So everything that I'm speaking about is from experience, firsthand experience, because I'm the one who was involved with it alongside Legislator Johnson. From the time that the sharing community closed, whether it had been finding alternative placement for them, helping the Y to secure a new location so that we can open a full shelter and day program, providing showers to the homeless, and coordinating with West Hab and other areas to be able to be able to provide showers for the homeless, organizing, food drives. I have a nonprofit. I'm a part of a nonprofit. It's Project Inspire Yonkers, and we, do give out food to the homeless often. All of those efforts, right, have been a part of combating homelessness. But if I'm being honest, those are particular pieces of combating homelessness that don't focus on the real issue, right? What is the real issue of homelessness, and why are people homeless? There's a number of reasons. Be
We
it,
we did we posted a video a few days ago of what a lot of people have to deal with the reason a lot of people have to deal with homeless.
yeah,
People losing their jobs. Domestic. These are a few top ones:
yeah,
domestic violence,
hmm
losing their jobs,
hmm
drug addiction.
right, not
It's
being
it's
able
a
to pay their
lot
rent,
more. It's a lot more deeper than what people think.
right. And I'm glad that you point those issues out because that's actually what I was going to get to. So being able to, give a hot plate here and there, or give toiletries or things of that nature is very surface level work when it comes to working with and combating homelessness. And I know people like to point out often that homelessness is a county issue and it's not something that the city is responsible for. But we're responsible for people just because we're human, right?
Right.
Like we're responsible for our community just because it's our community. So on the city council, I would not be looking at it from a perspective as that's the county's problem. It's not something that we should be dealing with or trying to address homelessness on a very surfacey way, right? I would be working with our county partners to see what the real issues are. Legislator Christopher Johnson, you just pointed out domestic violence. You pointed out people not being able to pay their rent because maybe they lost their job, right? Being able to allocate funds for a countywide ERAP program so that people can pay their rent, being able to institute eviction prevention funds because your chances increase by like 90% when you have a lawyer in court against your landlord, being able to make sure that the Office for Women and their domestic violence high risk team has the resources necessary to be able to keep women and men safe in those situations
Right.
and not force them to lose their housing, are all issues that in our office at the county have come up and have been dealt with. And that's the stuff that people don't really see, right? People
Right.
instead see the couple of people that's in Getty Square and they say, oh, we have this horrible homeless problem and nobody's addressing it. But they're not really paying attention to, you know, the collaborations that happen in the back rooms and at the tables to make sure that people are not just off the street for a day. People don't just have one hot meal. It's about longevity and helping them to transition into permanent housing. And as a city council person, that would be my goal, to collaborate with county partners to figure out how do we not just take people off the street for a day, just stuff them in a warehouse somewhere so they can have a drop in to stay in, but to really figure out how we move and shake. Can I say one thing that
Yeah.
that has happened at the county that I think would be amazing if the city council has the ability to throw itself behind. So if you're a homeless person and you don't stay in a drop-in, you go into a formal shelter, right? When you go into that formal shelter, there is state law that requires the shelter to take, I want to say it's somewhere around 80% of your income a month in order to stay in that shelter. Now, obviously, that deters people from wanting to stay in the shelter
Right.
because if I'm
Absolutely.
making $1,000 a month and you want 800 of it, why would I want to stay in your shelter, right? How am I going to
Right.
save to afford to be able to move into an apartment? So that is state law that is ancient, that needs to be looked at and needs to be advocated for to our state partners. It would be amazing to have our city council, right, work together with our county government and not just our county government doing it, working together to advocate at the state level for something like that to be changed, right? So that people
Right.
can save their money and be able to transition again into a long-term situation, not just throwing them in a shelter or placing them, you know, somewhere just so they're out of sight, out of mind. I would be looking
Absolutely.
toward long-term solutions.
I like that because I've I've spoken with many homeless people in Yonkers, and it's wherever you walk. Let's not make this just a Yonkers issue or Westchester issue, but this is a whole worldwide problem. But if we can try to do something in our very own city, why not, right?
Absolutely. Can you hear me well?
So I can hear you, yes.
Okay, good.
So, so the affordable housing. So, in like I said, District One is very, very, very important with the homeless issue. There's so much construction going on, so much of it, and there's over probably 700,000 apartments in total being built inside in District 1, and probably 200 of those are affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a city that relied so much on affordable housing back in the 90s, early 2000s, because, early 2000s, we were in a recession. So a lot of people were dealing with trying to find affordable housing. They couldn't, so they became homeless, and it became just a big bubble that exploded.
Mm-hmm.
What what is going on, and what do you see in the future if you're elected as councilwoman with the issue of the ignorance when it comes down to the neglect of affordable housing? Because that's
Yes.
what I call it. It's ignorance.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people remember
Yep.
for people that lived in affordable housing in Yonkers was a great percentage, and
Yeah.
those people are who built Yonkers.
Yeah.
But now they're being how they. This is how they feel. They feel like as if they're being kicked out because
Absolutely.
of all this new development. That's not
Absolutely.
really for the people of Yonkers. So tell me for District One, where there's majority of the construction, how do you plan on bringing up the affordable housing issue with
Sure.
your future colleagues?
Sure. So, one thing about the current affordable housing ordinance that I think needs to be addressed, and I would be working toward getting passed, right, is not just having the percentage of affordable housing changed, right? Because if you look at the affordable housing legislation as it currently stands, the percentage is not the only thing that's wrong with it. There is, and let me just point out, I've actually recently lived under the current affordable housing ordinance and had to move because um, I got a raise, to put it plainly, right? And that shouldn't be.
Right.
I got a raise, but not a raise to where I could afford the rent that is so high, for myself and for my daughter, right? And so people shouldn't be pushed out of their affordable housing because, or scared to make an extra dollar because they might be pushed out, right? So when I talk about the current affordable housing ordinance and things needed to be changed, that's one of the things that I'm talking about. Having the meat of the legislation changed to be able to better suit Yonkers residents, especially on the west side. That means not being forced to leave because you make a dollar over the required income, right? Changing the way, or working to change and figure out how we can adjust the way the reporting for that income is done, because unbeknownst to many, that income reporting is annualized. And so if you got a Zelle payment from last year from your mom as a birthday gift, right? And the reason you put down for getting that Zelle payment is not correctly, it doesn't suit the person who's recertifying you. They're going to not only count that $100, but they're actually going to annualize it. And they're going to say, well, because you got $100 last February, it's likely that you'll get another $100 this February. So we're going to have to count that towards income, right? It's all of these little nuances that do not help residents of Yonkers. The fact that we are
It's like they try so hard to save as much as they can,
yeah,
but they're not doing it right. It's
yeah,
understandable to a certain extent, but it's obviously, like you're saying, not being done correctly.
yeah. I think it's when we talk about ignorance, how you put it earlier in the affordable housing, it's easy to be ignorant when you just really don't know. I am somebody who knows, right? I've lived in project housing. I've lived in Section 8 housing. I've lived under a private landlord. I've lived under the current affordable housing ordinance. I have a very unique perspective on housing that I don't think a lot of people have who are at the tables having these conversations.
Well, I don't know if you've seen my coverage on District Three's councilwoman. I'm not her favorite, but I call it out, right? I call it out. She, let's. I don't want to put you in this middle spot, but I'm bringing up this scenario because this is how tired some people are of what's being said and then what's being done after they're elected. So affordable housing was preached very highly by Tasha Diaz.
Mhm,
After Tasha Diaz was elected,
mhm,
that went complete 360
mhm.
on the affordable housing. So apparently because of Tasha Diaz, there's less affordable housing and there's not going to be much more. But she did change her vote. That's factual.
Yeah.
Um, do you what can you say to the people on building that trust where you can promise something and keep up with that and not be, as some say, bought out by the rest?
So
Does
I
that make
honestly,
sense?
what you're saying makes complete sense, and I know
I'm trying to say it the nicest way possible.
I understand the way, right, and I understand people's frustrations, not just with Tasha, but with the affordable housing ordinance in general, and with feeling as though there are people who say one thing and do another thing, right? But I can't speak um, to the majority leader's decisions,
Right.
and if I'm being frank, when the vote was taken, her and I had a conversation because I know her personally, right? I know Tasha outside of politics, and in fact, we're both from School Street, so that's one of the ways that's another unique perspective I feel I hold because I'm able to have frank conversations with people, not just because of my personality and not just because I know them outside of politics, but I think that I just have a natural nature to want to come to a resolve, right? How do we
Right.
get to we if we have a shared passion, how do we get to the end goal without sacrificing who I am, without sacrificing who you are? What do we do to bring both of each other to the table? And with affordable housing in particular, and with that vote in particular, I was not there, and I don't know the specifics of what took place during those negotiations. But I can only speak for myself in saying that if anybody who knows me know I'm a woman of solutions. I'm very resourceful, and I don't focus on the problem. I want to focus on solving it. So that
Right.
would be the tactic that I would use to be able to bring everybody to the table and get everybody on board. With that said, I will not do so with sacrificing the people that I represent. I will not do so with sacrificing, the platform that I currently stand on. That won't happen. But I am one who will roll up my sleeves, okay, if we got to be here until who knows when, to figure out how we get to the same resolve. And I think that that is an attitude and a
That, that,
personality that would
that
help.
absolutely. That's a must-have attitude and personality. 100,000%. So I know you can't speak on her. That wasn't my intention, but the
Yeah.
scenario, a lot of people um, don't trust anyone anymore. That's why I'm asking because
Yeah.
a lot of people, and I know that you have been committed to these community meetings that you and your team have started in the community in order to communicate and get to know the residents in District
Yeah.
1. That's pretty impressive. Tell me a little bit of how you came up with that different tactic, because it's not the norm. It's different.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you. Um, I would say it was like a no-brainer, right? Like, I know oftentimes in elections, we decide to um, have meetings, town halls, conversations after we've won, right? Like, the election
Yeah.
is over. Now it's time to make our rounds and figure out what the residents may want of us, etc. And during the election, we oftentimes focus very much on a very specific electorate, right? We look at who's voted in the last 20 years, who's voted in primary specifically, and we
Yeah.
base our universes on a very tight electorate. I am one that thinks that we not only need to expand the electorate by getting people registered to vote who have not voted before, but it's a time to re-engage people because, like you said, a lot of people are, just disheartened with the process. A lot of older people have said like they fought for decades and they don't see much change, right? So how do we change their minds? We can't change everybody's mind, but does that mean that we
Absolutely.
shouldn't try? We shouldn't try to re-engage our residents in the voting
Doesn't hurt.
process.
Doesn't hurt to try.
It doesn't hurt to
Because
try.
right, because then it shows that there's actually someone out there that gives a crap, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, I remember that woman that was doing these meetings. Her name's
Hmm.
Shatika.
Hmm.
That no one else does that. It goes a long way,
Right,
and
right.
and
And even if
you're looking forward to.
I
So
can't change your mind, right, on a door or by giving you coffee and a donut because I'm in the bottom of the building, it's just about engaging people. Like, there's so many people. There are people that I've registered to vote that registered in 2 seconds. I didn't even have to ask them more than once, and that led me to believe people are just not even asking. They're not
yeah,
even trying to engage new voters or expand the electorate. And for me in my campaign, Anderson, it's not as much as it's about me winning and being candidate I'm sorry, being council person for the first district, it is further and longer game than that. It's about getting people engaged and getting them charged up and keeping them engaged. I have a daughter who's going to be in Yonkers Public Schools soon, right? Um, it's important to me that the decisions for the schools, the budget that's being passed, who the trustees are, all of those are in her best interest and best favor, as well as other, the other youth
Absolutely.
that are in the first district. So
Absolutely.
yeah, the community conversations are really for that purpose. It's to not just talk to the people who come to the meetings all the time and the same old faces that we see. It's for the people who are working 2 and 3 jobs and can't make the meeting, right? So I'm going to come
Right.
to you and I'm going to meet you where you at so that we can talk about what's happening in our district.
Absolutely. And timing is key because we've seen some incidents where, for instance, the term limits meeting
Yeah.
was put out like a day or two before. That
Yeah,
wasn't enough timing for people.
absolutely not.
But we posted it up the second one a week ahead of time, and you saw the outcome.
Yeah.
So that's part of engagement
Hmm.
because you want to do it right. You're gonna get positive engagement. You do it at the end of the day for
Yeah.
tomorrow, that's
Yep.
just gonna leave a bad taste in some people's mouths, right? And
Absolutely.
that messes up your engagement and your goals because word of mouth is big.
Yeah.
Once someone is left with a bad taste, it just goes around, and vice versa. Someone is pleased, they'll go around and talk.
Right. Exactly.
So with me having children, you having a daughter,
Hmm.
school is very important to us.
Hmm.
Not as much as when we were younger. We didn't think school was as important, right?
Absolutely.
But now we're like, you better not f up because I have a
That's
sixth
right.
grader, and I warned him. I was
Oh
like, you
gosh,
are
sixth
in.
grade. Do
You
you
Yeah.
remember, do you remember what you were doing in sixth grade? I know I wasn't the
I
best
rather
behaved.
not say it on live. I was definitely in Yonkers Middle High School doing what I was not supposed to be doing. So, but it's crazy. Some of my old teachers, security guards are really big fans of Inside Yonkers, and I know
Right,
they're
you're making
watching
up for
now.
it now. Absolutely,
Absolutely, absolutely.
absolutely.
But school is really important, and what we expect from schools is clearly not what we expected as for ourselves as children.
Right.
Schools are becoming overpopulated. There's
Mhm.
just more and more people out there.
Mhm.
The schools are really old,
Mhm.
really, really old, especially in the first district.
Mhm.
We've had the same superintendent for so long. Um, do you think it's time that we put some more effort into our schools, especially the infrastructure of the public school system? These schools are old, like I said,
Yeah.
300 times.
Yeah.
And we have a firehouse in District 1, the brand new firehouse in Getty Square.
Mhm.
Okay, not a lot of people know this, but that firehouse has no landline.
Oh wow,
So the
I didn't know
members that work there have to use their personal cell phones to conduct department business. So the theory behind that was because we broke it first that they have the intentions of tearing down the firehouse, the
that.
brand new firehouse, to
Okay.
build a new AMS development. Now, to my point of the schools, with that is the amount of money that's being used, because obviously it's money being used to do all this stuff, especially
Mhm.
tear down a brand new building.
Mhm.
Why are we not asking for more from these developers that are clogging our city up to
Yeah.
do something for our schools, and especially compromise the brand new firehouse that these firefighters didn't even want in the first place?
Yeah.
Um, what do you have to say when people are just wondering why are these developers not helping?
Absolutely. So I asked the same questions, right? I was just on a meeting that was put together by City Council President Lakeisha Collins Bellamy.
I
Um,
missed that, unfortunately.
yeah, I was on there, and there wasn't a lot of community members on there, if I'm being frank. But the developers were there. and the current council person and the council president was there. And I asked 3 questions last night after, they kind of gave us an update on where things were. So right now they're in AMS is who we're talking about. They're trying to get some zoning changes to be able to move forward with their projects. I wanted to know if there was a community benefits agreement in place, and where things stand with that. Because they're focused on, this is the response that I got, because they're focused on the zoning right now, they haven't gotten that far. But on the call, they did tell me, Mr. Weingarten did say that they have agreed to do a community benefits agreement. What a community benefits agreement does for our community and for our schools is transformational. Can you imagine if every development, all these new developments around, all had community benefit agreements attached to them that invested in our schools? That's money right there that invests into the city of Yonkers Public Schools, that doesn't interrupt the maintenance of effort, right? We hear every year record funding given to the schools. We've given record funding. And what that really means is that they gave a couple of dollars more this year than they gave last year. And that's mostly because they have to. Because if you know anything about the maintenance of effort, if you give 100 million this year, you can't give any less than 100 million next year. And I think that might be a scary thing for people, right? For our elected officials who are managing this budget, they're afraid that if we pump too much money into the schools, that we have to maintain that effort next year. And we just seen with the pandemic how things are unpredictable. And so it's a fair assumption that there might be some trickiness around pumping a lot of money into the schools and having to maintain that for years to come. But what I push back against, and what I think in my mind, is how can we get creative in figuring out where we can get other funds for our schools that don't interrupt the maintenance of effort? Community benefits agreements. How do we shape those so that the investments made by developers who are coming here and getting all these tax breaks are able to be invested back into our schools and doesn't put us in a tight or sticky situation maintenance of effort wise? Do we need to continue to push upon our state representatives to fully fund the formula and to give us money? Absolutely. But similar to the homeless situation, we have a duty as local government to be able to do all that we can to provide those resources as well. And I'm ready and down to figure out what that is. I don't have all the answers, but I'm excited to explore the possibilities of being able to raise some funds for our schools that don't put us in tight situations. And I'm sure it's easier said than done, but I've never run from a hard task before, and I won't stop now.
I like that. I like that attitude. So it's really important that we talk about it, because these are things that people are actually, thinking about, actual people that live in Yonkers. And these are not things that a lot of other people talk about, because they're worried about other things that are going on. What's going on behind the scenes is very important, because it helps people better understand how things work and why some things are happening, why some things are not happening. So bail reform. That's my last one. All right.
You got the state law, right?
But I know, but
I'm happy to talk about it. I'm just saying.
The reason I ask is because a lot of criminals are coming into Yonkers. 2-3 weeks ago, Lieutenant Dean Palatapapis, I hope I said his name right, the public information lieutenant of the Yonkers Police Department, sat in front of the council members and asked for better enforcement and tougher rules for junkyards and dealers and other places when it comes down to the highly increasing deaths of catalytic converters, the auto thefts. Not a lot of people understanding. Also, with bail reform, these guys just walk right out the same night. So there's a lot of people doing smash and grabs. They go in the stores, grab what they want, and they leave. So a lot of people, I had this conversation with a friend yesterday. She was, she's like, what's going on? Why are all these chases going on? It's because these people, like the lieutenant said in front of city council, these people are coming in from outside of Yonkers, committing the crime in Yonkers and trying to leave. But Yonkers police is too fast for them. But my point is what do you think on the lieutenant's statement that the city council and the city should help them more with being stricter on these junkyards, because these junkyards would take catalytic converters just from anybody that walks
Of
up to
course.
them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So my position on anything that's stolen, right? That's that's stolen is that there should definitely be protections in place, like being stricter on the junkyards and the auto dealers to prevent Westchester from being, a gold mine, right? For people who are trying to steal catalytic
It's a
converters.
huge gold mine.
Yeah.
I think last year there was only 22 to this year. There not this year. Last year there was 720 something catalytic converters in Yonkers.
Hmm.
In 2021 there was like 22.
Right. So it's trendy, right? Like, and I think that's something. So let me just give you a little bit of background. At the county level, I'm actually working on legislation to figure out how we do just that. How in Westchester County we create tighter barriers and restrictions on these official places from being able to purchase stolen catalytic converters from individuals, and then equally being able to make it harder for people to sell catalytic converters to junkyards, pawn shops, etc. in Westchester. So I'm excited that you brought that up because it's something that I'm like researching and looking at now. And I say that to say that it's not just a trendy thing here; it's trendy all over the country. There are websites
Absolutely.
that are like giving you the like up to date scoop on when catalytic converters are being stolen and what state they're being stolen from, etc. I had visited the county's real time crime center, and it's a
It's
very,
a pretty impressive area.
pretty impressive. Yeah. And they, talked about how they were able to apprehend some people who had stole catalytic converters and tried to go back into the Bronx. I would just circle back to your original question and say that I don't know for a fact that that is in direct correlation to bail reform. I think that I want to make it clear my position on bail reform and the motivations behind reforming bail so that people are not sitting in jail for years at a time and we don't have another Khalif Browder on our hands, right, is, in my personal opinion, in the best interest of humanity and in the best interest of people, because I live amongst and come from a side of Yonkers, right, that doesn't
It's
have
not the best.
um,
It
right, and
wasn't the very.
doesn't have the resources to not commit a crime, be innocent, and get out the next day and fight their cases from the outside, right? I come from a place where more often than not, people are going to be sitting in jail waiting for a public defender or for a trial to start, etc., because they can't come up with a few extra $100 for bail. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of bail reform, and I'm not going to pretend and sit here that I do. That is more information that I need to look into and read up on before I can give, a more detailed opinion. But my overall view of bail reform and the advocates that I've spoke with and the motivation behind bail reform is so that people are not innocently rotting away in prison for, especially for crimes that they didn't commit. Um,
Right.
so I don't know the correlation between the two. I would love to learn more information about it and speak with the lieutenant chief that you mentioned to get his particular take and expertise on it, so that I
I
can.
can send you his information. I
Yeah, I'd
speak to
love
him
to
every
talk.
day.
I love to talk with him, just to learn more, because I'm always learning. I'm constantly learning. My position on one thing could be something today, right? But as I grow and get more information, maybe that alters a little bit. Maybe I see I refuse to be somebody who is very black or white. I think in this role as city council person, it's going to be very important for me to be able to see things from all different angles, um,
Absolutely.
and not
Being
just have like,
transparent.
yeah, and not be biased based off of my own personal experiences, because I don't just represent myself in that role. I'm representing 35,000 other people, and it's important for me to be able to look at all the different perspectives and make decisions based off of
Yeah,
that.
for sure. You
Yeah.
know what? We started a little late, but
Yep.
honestly, it was a great interview.
Yes.
And thank you. We're gonna wrap this up.
Yep.
I don't want to take too much more of your time,
Thank
but
you.
I greatly appreciate you coming on Inside Yonkers.
Absolutely.
It's an honor, and whenever you want to come on back, you let me know. We do it again.
I sure
Um,
will.
but honestly. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
And I like your attitude, and I believe it's gonna help you. But I'm nobody. I'm just saying, from talking to you,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But best of luck on your race. Honestly,
Thank
it's
you
gonna
so
be
much.
one hell of an interesting year in
Your
Yonkers. That's for
time.
sure.
Right. That is for
For
sure.
everyone running.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to hear your views on the key important issues in Yonkers that
Yeah.
everyone's facing right now.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that, there's people out there that are on the same page. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely.
So, if we mentioned the community meetings earlier. If anybody wants, tell me how anybody can set
Anybody?
that up.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. I love these candid talks, as you can see. I like being candid and comfortable and being able to have just regular conversation with people about topics that are important, not just to me, but to the first district and to the city of Yonkers as a whole. If you are trying to get in contact with me or the campaign, my website is parkerforyonkers.com. My email is parkerforyonkers@gmail.com. And to the conversation, the community conversations, we are looking to have more of those. I can host one in your living room. I'm happy to host one, at your favorite coffee shop that's near your home. Now that the district expands all the way to the Yonkers Bronx borderline, I know that there's a particular part of the district that I need to explore and talk with residents about. And I really look forward to that. And so if you're watching this and you have any interest in having me come speak to you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, please reach out to me via email at parkerforyonkers@gmail.com to be able to connect and make that happen.
It's funny you said that as I clicked that. It's just perfect timing.
Oh, really good.
All right. So, like I said, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on here. I wish you and your team the best of luck.
Absolutely.
And your media guy, he's awesome. He's really on top of
Did
it.
you
Let me
hear
tell
that?
you, he's really on top of it. So I look forward to working with him again, and probably on other things. We'll
Yeah.
be in touch, But like I said, good luck, and thank you
Thank
for
you
coming
so much.
on
I
Inside
appreciate
Yonkers City Talk.
it. Thank
Bless
you.
you and your daughter, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.
No problem. Take care, all right?
Alrighty. Bye bye.